Chapter 12. The Watsons Go to Birmingham. That dog won't hunt no more. Birmingham was like an oven. That first night, I couldn't sleep at all. Me and Vi had to share a bed, and we both were sweating like two pigs. It got so hot that Byron didn't even keep a sheet on himself to make sure I didn't accidentally touch him in the night. He finally slept on the floor because he said it was a little bit cooler. When I got up, Byron was gone. I looked out of the window into the backyard, and Vi and Dad and Mr. Robert were standing under a great big tree with a dog. I went to the bathroom real quick, did my morning scratches, then ran out to be with the guys. Morning, Kenny. Morning, Dad. Morning, Mr. Robert. Morning, Vi. Byron just grunted, then said, Man, you got to quit drinking so much water. You sweated up the whole bed last night. I ain't sharing the bed with your leaky little butt. He looked at Dad. With your leaky little self. Mr. Robert said, You boys will get used to the heat. Dad petted the dog and said, He's too old to hunt? Oh, yeah, that dog won't hunt no more. He's just like me, lost the desire. Both of us got to the point where we just couldn't pull the trigger. Both of us got to be just like Joe Louis toward the end. Remember his last fights, Daniel? Remember how Joe just walked around the ring waving that left fist like a threat? He just couldn't throw it. He just couldn't pull the trigger no more. His mind told him to do it, but his body wouldn't cooperate. That's me and Toddy. There's times at night I hear him howl, and I know he's dreaming about being back in the woods, but both of us know that's gone. Mr. Robert bent down and rubbed the dog's head. Yeah, son, in his day, this was the best coon dog in all Alabama. Used to get $100 just to stud him. Byron rubbed the old gray, nasty-looking dog's head, too. $100? Man. Yeah, me and Toddy saved each other's lives. I hate seeing him get so old. Judging by the way Mr. Robert looked, I bet the dog was saying the same thing about him. How'd you save his life? You ever been coon hunting? No, sir. Well, there ain't too many animals wilier or tougher than an old coon. Most people think you just chase them up a tree and pop them, but that ain't half the story. Toddy trailed this coon all the way out to this lake, and the coon went in the water. Now, most of the time, a dog will stop right at the water. They know better than to go in. But Toddy must have just dove right in after that coon. He must have been half a mile ahead of me when I heard him holler and then get real quiet. What happened? The coon got him in the water and held his head under till he drowned him. I stopped believing this junk right there. A raccoon drowning a dog? I looked at Vi and Dad, but they both were believing what Mr. Robert was saying. Dad said, I've heard about raccoons doing that. Oh, yeah, Toddy here's living proof. Byron said, If he drowned, how come he ain't dead? Well, I finally got to that lake. I seen the coon going out one way and Toddy nowhere in sight, and I knew what happened. I dove right in that water and started looking for him. It took me only a minute. I dragged him back to shore, turned him upside down to let the water run out of him, held his mouth shut and breathed right into his nose. He kicked a couple of times and came to. Byron said, Man, that's too much. That's cool. All I could think of was that Mr. Robert was probably the only human being who'd ever put his mouth on a dog's nose. That was pretty cool. I asked Dad, When do we eat? Kenny, you're the only one who hasn't eaten already. Your mother and grandmother are in the kitchen. Go on in. I went back inside. Even before I got in, I could hear Mama saying that Birmingham wasn't anything like what she remembered. Her favorite sayings got to be, What's this? And how long has this been like that? And when did it happen? And why do you do this like that? And most of all, oh, Mama. Grandma Sands thought Mama was hilarious and cracked up every time Mama got upset or worried about something that she didn't remember or didn't like. Grandma Sands must have seen The Wizard of Oz a million times because every time she laughed, it sounded just like that Wicked Witch of the West. At first, her laugh was so scary that whenever me and Joey heard it, we wanted to go get behind something or someone, but after a while, we got used to it. It took us even longer to get used to the southern style of talking. Man, Grandma Sands and Mama would get yakking each other, and we could only understand half the things they said. The smell of bacon dragged me right into the kitchen. Mama, Joey, and Grandma Sands were sitting at the little skinny kitchen table yakking. Morning, Kenneth. Morning, Mama. Morning, Joey. Morning, Grandma Sands. You sleep okay? It was real hot. Joey was sitting in Mama's lap looking all drowsy. She said, I know, I was sweating all night. The bacon was sitting on a plate on a piece of paper towel. Mama had another piece of paper towel in her hands because all the things that Grandma Sands was telling her were making her hands get all sweaty and disgusting. I got some cereal and bread and bacon and sat at the skinny table with them. I must have interrupted something real important because as soon as I sat down, Mama acted like I disappeared and started asking Grandma Sands more questions. Well, what about Calla Lily Lincoln? I always wondered what she's doing. Lona, didn't I write you about that? They kept on talking and kept on oohing and ahhing, and Grandma Sands kept on interrupting breakfast by scaring me and Joey with that laugh. And Mama kept on saying, Oh, Mama. And she kept on having to get up and get more paper towels to wipe her hands. And most of all, she kept on talking more and more Southern style. They talked about how much trouble people here were having with some white people down here who got married to who and how many kids this one had and how many times that one was in jail. A bunch of boring junk like that. It didn't get interesting till I noticed that Mama got real nervous right before she said, And what about you, Mama? Mr. Robert seems like a nice man and all, but Grandma gave that laugh, and my spoon flew out of my hand and spilled cornflakes on the table. Mama acted like she didn't even notice, but without even looking at me, she handed me one of the nasty soaking wet pieces of paper towel and kept looking at Grandma Sands. I was wondering when we'd get to that. Grandma Sands smiled. We've been good friends since right after you all left for Flint. Mama was being kind of rude. She interrupted and said, "Oh, Mama, good friends, what does that mean?" Well, Lona Sands, what is it that's bothering you? Why don't you just say what's on your mind? Mama started wringing the neck of another piece of paper towel. I just don't understand what's going on here. How come I never knew him? Did Daddy know him? Mama said that last part like she was dropping a bomb on Grandma Sands. Grandma Sands looked at her for a minute. Lona, things are different from what they were when you were. Nearly everything changes. Your daddy's been gone for almost 20 years. Grandma Sands had stopped smiling. Now, Mr. Robert is my dearest friend. Wow. I could see where Byron learned how to say a couple words and have people think he'd said a whole bunch more. Grandma Sands didn't yell or scream or anything, but the way she said those couple of things made everybody who heard it shut their mouths and listen real hard. Even though she only told Mama that Mr. Robert was her friend, it seemed like I heard her also give my mother a real good scolding. Mama pouted and kissed the top of Joey's head. I picked up my spoon and kept eating. This was great. I'd never seen Mama out like a little kid who just got yelled at, but there she was, picking out a piece of paper towel and looking kind of embarrassed. Dad and Byron came in with Mr. Robert. Mr. Robert's going to walk us over to the lake, show us the best fishing spots for later. Joey, Kenny, you coming? Give these two some time alone to talk. Mama pushed Joey off her lap, and we followed the little parade outside. The heat made me and Joey feel like we couldn't wake up. I didn't want to do any walking, but the dirty dogs made me go anyway. The only kid that acted like he was having any fun was Byron. He walked the whole way with Mr. Robert and Dad and laughed and joked with them about every stupid story they told. When we finally got back and I went to sleep under the fan, they were going to force me to go fishing with Byron and Joey the next day, and I knew I needed a ton of rest. I started to think that making Byron spend all of his summer in this heat was more punishment than even a juvenile delinquent like him deserved, but he seemed like he was having a great time. Chapter 13, I meet Winnie's evil twin brother, the Woolpoo. Chapter 13. If y'all are going to the water, you stay away from Collier's Landing. A couple of years ago, Miss Thomas's little boy Jimmy got caught up in some kind of whirlpool there, and they didn't find the poor soul's body for 3 days. I'd only halfway listened to what Grandma Sands had said, and now me and Joey and Byron were standing at the sign with arrows that pointed in two directions. The one pointing to the left said public swimming. Another one pointing to the right looked like it had been on the post for 1,000,000 years, but if you got close to it, you could read, warning, no trespassing, no swimming, no public entry. Signed, Joe Collier. Oh, man, Collier's Landing, I said. Let's go. I knew Joey wouldn't like this, but I figured me and Bi could talk her into coming and not snitching. Joey said, Kenny, you heard Grandma Sands tell about that little boy getting lost in the water. What was that thing called that she said got him? Daddy Cool said, didn't you hear what she said, Joey? She said he got caught by the Woolpoo. Is that a fish, Joey asked. You know who Winnie the Pooh is, don't you? Me and Joey both nodded. Well, the Woolpoo is Winnie's evil twin brother. Don't no one ever write about him because they don't want to scare y'all kids. What he does is hide underwater and snatch stupid kids down with him. I figured that dumb story was enough to scare me off, and he started walking in the direction of the public swimming. If Kenny wants to take his stupid little behind down there and get snatched, let him. Bi grabbed Joey's hand and started pulling her along with him, but she skidded her feet in the dirt. But Byron, what if the Woolpoo comes down to where we're going? Can he swim down there and get people too? No, Joey, the Woolpoo don't come on public beaches. He just grabs folks that are too stingy to let peons come onto their land like this Collier guy. Who could understand Byron? Here was a chance for another fantastic adventure, and he was going in the wrong direction. Something was wrong with him. If he was in Flint and you told him not to do something, he'd go right out and do it. But now he was acting real dull and square. Maybe it was the heat. Maybe just like it had sucked all the energy out of me, it had sucked all the meanness and fun out of Byron. What you gonna do, punk? Byron shouted over his shoulder. Joey yelled, come on, Kenny, you know what Grandma Sands said. I couldn't believe it. I really wanted to see where some kid drowned, and now Bob was choosing this time to listen to what a grown-up told him. Oh, man, I'm going to Collier's Landing. Byron shrugged. Have fun. I shouted, what's wrong with you? When are you going to start acting like you normally do? What would Bubhead say if he saw you acting like this? Byron flipped me a double middle finger and another finger sign I'd never seen before and said, just keep your stupid little butt out of the water. Forget you, I'm going. They kept walking. I'm not playing. Joey waved. I'm going to Collier's Landing. They were gone. I looked in the direction that the warning sign was pointing and started to get a little nervous. I turned and started to follow Joey and Byron, but finally decided I really was going to go to Collier's Landing. Maybe Byron was getting sick of having more fantastic adventures, but I figured I was getting old enough to have some myself. "You're a couple of jive squares," I shouted. Then I walked away. The warning sign pointed. Byron must have thought I was stupid. Whoever heard of something called a wool poo? I wasn't sure what the lie was, but I knew Byron had made that junk up. Besides, if Winnie the Pooh had an evil twin brother, it seems like I would have read about it somewhere. Some of the time, it was kind of hard to understand what Grandma Sands was saying, but I couldn't remember her saying anything about any wool poo. If there really was something that snatched kids into the water, Mama and Dad wouldn't have let us come down here, would they? I knew all that stuff, but I was still kind of nervous when I followed the wool trail that went through a bunch of bushes and led to the water. I forgot all about Byron's lies as soon as I saw the water. Collier's Landing was great. The water was dark, dark blue, and best of all, it was about 100 degrees cooler. Joe Collier had put up another sign on a giant tree. "Warning, danger, no swimming. 6 lives been lost here. Bad drop-off. Signed, Joe Collier." 6? Grandma Sands had said only 1 little boy drowned here, not 6. I felt dumb, but I looked real hard at the water to see if the wool poo was hiding there. I even looked up and down the shore to see if there were any strange footprints on the ground. I was kind of worried because this sign looked a lot fresher than the first one. I kept waiting for Bi to jump out of the bushes and say something like, "Aha, you little dope, I gotcha. Made you look for a wool poo," but everything was real calm and quiet. The water didn't even look like it was moving, but like it was breathing, going up and down, and it made a sound like the wind blowing through big trees in Flint. I walked right to the edge of the water and still didn't see anything strange, so I figured if there really was anything dangerous, Byron would have followed me here and stopped me from getting hurt, wouldn't he? Then a bell went off in my head. I knew Joe Collier put that sign up because he didn't want to share his lake with anyone. The wool poo was some made-up garbage. There's one good thing about getting in trouble. It seems like you do it in steps. It seems like you don't just end up in trouble, but that you kind of ease yourself into it. It also seems like the worse the trouble is that you get into, the more steps it takes to get there. Sort of like you're getting a bunch of little warnings on the way. Sort of like if you really wanted to, you could turn around. The first warning I should have listened to was when Daddy Cool and Joey followed the air to the left and I went to the right. The second warning came when I decided to wade in the water and the knots wouldn't come out of my tennis shoelaces and I had to pull and tug the shoes off with the laces still tied. After that, it's kind of hard to count how many warnings I got because with the trouble I ended up in, I must have had a zillion of them. Step by step, I kept easing into trouble until I finally was standing in the lake with the water up to my knees. I'd gone out into the water because there was a bunch of little stupid-looking, slow-moving fish right near the shore, and I thought I might be able to catch some of them and make them pets. I wasn't afraid because I figured if there was a real wool poo and he was in the area, these little fish wouldn't be hanging around. Alabama fish were a lot friendlier and a lot trickier than Michigan ones. I bent over and stuck my hand in the water and tried to grab a couple, but they kept slipping away like they were covered with soap. They were right there and I couldn't grab them. They didn't even act like they were afraid of me. They just kept swimming around my legs, even bumping their faces into me like they were trying to kiss me. It seemed like they wanted me to catch them and take them back to Flint. After missing about 100 times, I stood up and saw the reason the fish wouldn't go out in the deeper water. There was a big green turtle about the size of a football cruising back and forth in the deep water, and he looked just as slow and stupid as the fish did. Wow, who'd want to have a fish for a pet when you could have a turtle? I took a few more steps out, and the cool blue water came all the way up to my arms. Getting cool all of a sudden like this made me bug my eyes out and suck in my breath. I made a quick grab at the stupid turtle, and zoom, he flapped his arms once and disappeared into the deeper water. That quick grab was my last step. Boom, all of a sudden, I was in big, big trouble. The rocky ground under my feet started sliding away from the shore. I didn't get nervous because I knew I could flap my arms like the turtle and get back to the dirt. I looked up and saw the shore was still real close. I flapped my arms and nothing happened. I stayed in the same spot. Then the rocks under my feet were gone and I was kicking in water. With the tips of my toes, I could still brush some of the rocks, but they were all slipping and sliding away from the shore. I pushed away to try to swim back and my head bobbed under the water. All the sound and light from Alabama disappeared because my eyes automatically shut and it seemed like my ears were stuffed with cotton. I got a mouthful of water, but my head came right back up. I laughed because I was spitting and patooing a mile a minute when my head popped up out of the water. But the laughing stopped real quick when I tried swimming again and my head went back under. That's when I got really scared. I'd seen enough cartoons to know that when your head goes down 3 times, it doesn't ever come up again.
Your sister's throwing up. She's sick. My sister? No, him. Oh.
I knew if I went down one more time, I was dead as a donut.
Teachers, pardon this interruption. Grades 7 through 12, please take a moment to dictate how many students you have absent in your current period. If you are missing a student in your current period, mark them as absent and send it to the high school office. Thank you.
And then looking down.
My eyes looked at the shore where my shoes were sitting safe on some rocks. Oh, man, I said to myself, I wish I had a magic lamp so I could have the genie make me be where those shoes are and they could be where I am. That was the last thing I thought before I found out that Grandma Sands and Byron and Joe Collier weren't lying at all. That was the last thing I thought about before I found out that the wolf poo was real and big and mean and horrible, and that he didn't care at all about dragging kids out in the water. I'd never ever been this scared in my life. I hollered out, "Mama!" My arms were punching the water like it was a person, and my legs were going a mile a minute to try to get back to the shore. But now even my toes couldn't find anything to touch. "Okay, Kenny," I said to myself, "you know you're going to be all right. Just get real calm and swim back to the land. When you count to 3, just go back to your shoes." I stopped kicking for a second and said, 1, 2, 3. Then I gave my arms one more flap to go back to the shore, and down I went again. My head went under for the 3rd time, and I knew I'd never come back up again. Going down 3 times like this is just like waking up and finding yourself tied to a tree with someone saying, "Ready, aim, fire." That's when he came swimming real slow out of the deep, and even though my head was underneath the dark water, I could see him coming right at me. He didn't look like he was related to Winnie the Pooh at all. He was big and gray with the hard, square-looking fingers. Where he should have had a face, there was nothing but dark gray. Where he should have had eyes, there was nothing but a darker, colder-looking color. He grabbed my leg and started pulling me down. I kicked and scratched at him, but he was just too strong. It seemed like he didn't even feel my punches. My head felt like it was going to explode. I didn't think I could hold my breath for another second. I was feeling real scared and dizzy from holding my breath this long. Then suddenly, I could see that there was someone else in the water, and the wolf who was pulling me right towards them. It was a little girl, and she had on a real pretty blue dress and big yellow wings and something tied around her head. When the wolf pulled me closer, I could see that it was a little angel. And wait a minute, it was Joetta, looking just like the angel Mrs. Davidson had given her. Joey had wings and a halo. Her face was real calm, too, but she was pointing straight up like there was something important I should look at. This angel that looked like Joey was telling me I had to swim up one more time. This really scared me. I knew it wasn't a good sign when he started saying angels. So I kicked and flapped my arms and started going towards the sky. My head came up and I spit out a belly full of water and took a couple good deep breaths. "Mama! Mama! Help me!" But the wolf poo wasn't through with me. I felt his hard hand go around my ankle. I went down for the 4th time. I got pulled a little further and saw someone else in the water with me, kicking up a ton of dirt and scratching at the water like they were crazy. Byron! Man, the wolf poo is going to let me see all my family one more time before I go. Byron tried grabbing at me, but the wolf poo was pulling me away too fast. I saw by his legs swim back up towards the sky. Pull, wish, stop. Pull, wish, stop. Up ahead, someone else was in the water. It has to be Mama and Dad. Goodbye, Mama. Goodbye, Dad. No, it's Bye again, still looking all crazy, still scratching the water. Byron and the wolf poo started duking it out. Bye must have hit it 100 times in that place where its face should have been. Finally, the wolf poo couldn't take it anymore, and I felt those cold, hard fingers come off my ankle. The wolf poo swam back into the deep water. The last thing I noticed about him was that he had big square toes. Byron grabbed me and put his arm around my neck, and it felt like he was trying to choke me. As soon as he got me on the shore, it turned me upside down, and I felt like I was going to die. I started throwing up a ton of water and food. If there was a forest fire somewhere, all they would have to do is hold me over it, and I would have put it out. I threw up and coughed and choked and vomited about 1,000,000 times, and all this just because I breathed in some air. Bye held my ankles and kept banging me up and down and screaming at me. When the sound from the water in my ears and the sound from me vomiting my guts out and the whoosh sound from the wolf poo finally left me, I could start hearing Byron shouted, "Oh man, oh man, oh man," over and over. Finally, I yelled, "Stop, put me down." Byron dropped me on the ground right on top of all the water and junk that I'd thrown up. I knew he was going to make a stupid joke about me landing face first in all that mess, but he didn't. He just wrapped his arms around my shoulders real tight and put his mouth right on top of my head. Byron was shaking like he was getting electrocuted and crying like a baby and kissing the top of my head over and over. This was real disgusting. He just kept saying, "Kenny, Kenny, Kenny," a bunch of times with his mouth wide open on top of my head. I could feel his teeth grinding in my skull, but I didn't care. I said, "Oh, man," and tried to make him quit, but all I could do was sit there, too tired to do anything but let Daddy Cool nibble on top of my head while he cried like a kindergarten baby.